I am the Whispering Storyteller. Hello everybody. Good evening. It is Craig Whispering Storyteller here. I hope you are well. So my room is illuminated in a really calm and serene purple to honour the life of our beloved Queen Elizabeth II. And I'm burning my candle here for Her Majesty. And it's been a very, very strange week or so since Her Majesty passed away. And we are a country in mourning. Everything seems to have come to a standstill. And I'll never forget the day I found out. I had finished work, and someone I know told me in the car park of all things that it had been announced that she had passed away. And trying to comprehend the fact that she isn't here anymore is very, very strange. She was such a remarkable woman. And she will be missed. And it's absolutely surprising how much the country has united together as she lies currently lying in state in Westminster. And crowds of people are queuing to see her. I've watched all of the live footage as she left Balmoral in Scotland and made her way down to Edinburgh, which is not too far from where I live. And of course, she then flew down to London. And she spent time in Buckingham Palace. And then she was moved to Westminster. So, this tomorrow, should I say, is actually the eve of her state funeral. And it feels right to kind of lay her to rest because we've moved her from the top of the country. It seems like she's been in transit the whole time, and I think it's now the right time to just let lie at rest. But I've put together a few facts about Queen Elizabeth II that I'm going to read out to you. I gathered them today from the internet, from various sources, and this is just going to be a nice, cosy little chit-chat all about Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. So I am going to be reading this out from a screen, and some of them you might know, and some of them you might not know. And some of them are fantastic trivia. So let us start. Are you comfortable? Let me give you some facts all about Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Now, first of all, the Queen was known for her love of the Corgi dog breed. In fact, she owned over 30 of those dogs throughout her life. But did you know that she bred the first ever doggy? A doggy? Have you heard of a doggy? Well, the doggy came about when her sister, Princess Margaret, had her pet dog, a dachshund named Pippin. Her dachshund named Pippin was Princess Margaret's dog. And the Queen's corgi and her sister's pet dachshund had some quality time alone. And history was made and the doggy was born. Did you know that one? Well, what about this next one? So post-war austerity measures meant that the then Princess Elizabeth bought the material for her wedding dress with World War II rations or coupons. She was helped by the British government, and they granted her an extra 200 clothing ration coupons, and brides-to-be sent the Princess Elizabeth their own special days. However, the Queen had to return these, as members of the royal family are not allowed to accept gifts of the public. Eventually, Queen Elizabeth, or Princess Elizabeth at that moment in time, married Prince Philip in a stunning wedding gown made by Norman Hartnell, and it was made from Chinese silk. Her dress was made from Chinese silk. And here's another one. On the morning of her wedding, Princess Elizabeth's diamond tiara actually snapped. So they were married in 1947. And as it was being secured to her wedding veil, it snapped. So it was only 2 hours before the wedding ceremony was to begin. So the headpiece, which was a halo of diamond-studded spikes, which was created in 1919 for Elizabeth's grandmother, Queen Mary, it was rushed to the workshop of a royal jewellery house, Gerard, under police escort, where it was hastily welded together within 2 hours of the wedding. even royalty can have these last-minute hitches. Here's another one for you. The Queen's birthplace is now a world-famous restaurant. A London townhouse at 17 Bruton Street was the home of her maternal grandparents and saw the birth of the baby Elizabeth that would then go on to become Britain's longest reigning monarch. The building is now a Cantonese restaurant called Hakkasan. The Queen actually had, I'm talking about her in past tense now of course, but the Queen actually had her own personal ATM machine. So there's no concern of royal riches being skimmed at the credit card machine. She has her ATM in Buckingham Palace and is provided by Coutts, which is the 8th oldest bank in the world. The Queen races pigeons. Now I didn't actually know that, but she kept a flock of around 20 racing pigeons at her country estate in Sandringham. You may also know that all of the unmarked swans on Britain's waterways were technically owned by the Queen. But did you know that she also owned all of the dolphins and whales in British waters? And they are known as Fishes Royal. The Queen and Prince Philip received over 2,500 wedding gifts when they married in 1947. Because nylon stockings were in limited supply due to clothes rationing, 131 pairs were sent to Elizabeth by women across the country. The couple also received a box of apples, 500 tins of pineapple, and an $83 million necklace. Isn't that amazing? Elizabeth met Prince Philip when she was 8 years old, and he was 13 years old. They met at the wedding of Prince George and Princess Marina. Now I believe Marina was Prince Philip's cousin, and Princess Elizabeth, as she was then, was actually related to Prince George. So that means that Elizabeth and Philip are third cousins. So they are actually connected in that royal bloodline. So when Philip was 18, he began writing to 13-year-old Elizabeth. And 7 years later, they were engaged. The Queen was fluent in French. She began to learn French at a very young age from French and Belgian governesses. She often spoke in the country's language when visiting, and shocked many when she delivered an address at the state banquet in 2014, speaking in French. According to the Royal website, it is a skill that has stood the Queen in good stead, as she often has the cause to use it when speaking to ambassadors and heads of state from French-speaking countries, and when visiting French-speaking areas of Canada. And did you know, I'm flittering from subject to subject here, but it's all about the Queen. So, did you know that those brightly coloured outfits that she wears with matching hats, she seems really fond of them. But there's a reason why she wears those shades of bright pink, bright yellow, or bright green. And that is that she will always stand out in a crowd. She was pretty short, so wearing neon and pastel shades would help people to glimpse her through during public engagements. So you'd never lose her from sight when she wears those brightly coloured clothes. Another interesting fact is that the Queen had a glass of champagne every evening, and she also had a gin cocktail before lunch every day. Although, given her recent health issues, she might have cut back a little bit towards the end. Since 1989, the Queen has only worn one shade of nail polish, and one shade only, and that was ballet slippers. Ballet slippers by Essie, which is a shade of the palest pearly pink. And the Queen's first bottle of it was originally ordered for her by her hairdresser. Amazing facts. This really brings out the human element of the Queen, because we only ever see the pomp and the pageantry, but there was a real person behind all of that who liked to relax at home, just like we do. Here's another fact. When the Queen was staying at Balmoral, her Scottish estate, she would be woken by a bagpiper playing under her pillow every morning at 7:30 a.m. Apparently it went on for a full 15 minutes. You'd sure be ready to get up and start the day's business queening after hearing that. I've actually heard that one before. It must be true. Did you know that the Queen had at least 30 godchildren, including Princess Diana's brother, the Earl Spencer? And here's another one for you. In 1944, when Princess Elizabeth was 18 years old, she joined the Auxiliary Territorial Service, and with that she trained as a truck driver and a mechanic in order to play her part in a war that began when she was 13 years old in 1939. Remember, the Second World War started in the UK in 1939. It started in the United States a little later, I think. She was the only female member of the British royal family to have served in the military. Here's another fact for you. The Queen was the only person in the entire United Kingdom who was not required to have a driver's license or a license plate on her vehicle. She also didn't need a passport, as all British passports are issued in her name. Fascinating. And I've got another great fact for you. Did you know that the Queen has 2 birthdays? Did you? I did. So she turned 96 on the 21st of April 2022 this year, but celebrated her official birthday in June amidst her Jubilee celebrations. The tradition of the monarch celebrating an official birthday began more than 250 years ago, with King George II deciding to publicly celebrate his birthday in the summer rather than a cold and wet November. And so, since 1748, every British monarch has carried on this tradition, so that there will be less chance of poor weather, impeding outdoor celebrations and military parades celebrating their birthdays. So the Queen's official birthday is June, but her real birthday is the 21st of April. Again, I keep talking about the Queen in the present tense, and I do apologise about that. I still can't believe that she's no longer here. Did you know that the Queen had sat for 150 portraits during her reign? 150, that is quite a lot. And in 2012 sat for a holographic portrait called Equanimity. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It was by Chris Levine and Rob Mundy. And in this image there was 10,000 images laid over one and the other to create a 3-dimensional image. Later it was repurposed in a new work called The Diamond Queen, to mark the Queen's Diamond Jubilee in 2012. And the project saw London Jewellery Asprey overlay 1,100 white diamonds over the tiara she wears in the portrait. Did you know that the Queen was tutored at home by Britain's very best tutors? She studied constitutional history and law as preparation for her future role. She took lessons in religion from the Archbishop of Canterbury, and she was also taught by the Vice Provost of Eton College. Did you know that she had 8 bridesmaids? She was married in 1947, and she had rather a large bridal party. The 8 bridesmaids that she chose were her sister, Princess Margaret, Princess Alexandra of Kent, Lady Caroline Montague Douglas Scott, Lady Mary Cambridge, Pamela Mountbatten, Margaret Elphinstone, and Diana Bowes-Lyon from her mother's side of the family. Remember the Queen Mum. Did you know that the Queen learned to drive in 1945? And she learned to drive during her time in the army. And it was often spotted, or shall I say, if she's spotted, she's often now taken her joyrides in a Range Rover or a Jaguar, because she was often spotted in Balmoral driving around, and she was quite friendly with the locals up at Balmoral. She used to go in all of the local shops and just be one of the community. There's some really cool footage of her just buying sweets and candies in a local store. Did you know Her Majesty had 5 official visits to the United States of America during her reign? 5 official visits to the USA. She went in 1957, in 1976, in 1983, 1991, and finally in 2007. Did you know that she received around 70,000 letters a year? 70,000, that is quite a lot. The Queen received about 200 to 300 letters per day, and she chose a few to read herself. But then had members of her staff to respond. The official royal website claims that the Queen is shown almost all of her correspondence on a daily basis by one of her private secretaries. And she takes a keen interest in all of the letters that she receives. Now, I've got a 100-year-old relative in Australia, and she received a letter just about a month ago from the Queen over in Adelaide in Australia. So I've got a nice photograph of her holding up her letter from the Queen. It's nice that she took the interest to read every single letter that they received. Oh, here's a good one for you. The Queen's purse, or handbag as we call it here in the UK, is used to signal her staff. She uses it to signal her staff. She was never spotted without her handbag. And it's not just to store her belongings or her marmalade sandwich, if you've seen the Paddington sketch. Her Majesty used her purse as a way to signal her staff, and it is said that if she placed her bag on the table, it meant she wanted to leave within 5 minutes. If she put her bag on the floor, it showed she wasn't enjoying the conversation and wanted to be rescued by her entourage. hosted Buckingham Palace's first ever woman-only event. In 2004, the Queen hosted Women of Achievement Luncheon at Buckingham Palace. The event was the first ever female-only function to take place inside the palace. Women from business, politics, fashion and the arts were invited over to lunch with Her Majesty. Guests included J.K. Rowling, Charlotte Church, who is or was a singer, a Welsh singer, I think, Twiggy, a 60s supermodel, Marjorie Wallace, Kate Moss, and many, 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 many more. Many, 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 many more. Did you know that she had a cameo with James Bond? I love this one. So for the 2012 Olympics, which were held in England, the Queen and her corgis made a cameo appearance in a James Bond sequence. She joined actor Daniel Craig on board a helicopter for a hilarious 6-minute action sequence where she jumps out of a helicopter with a parachute with a Union Jack and then walks into the audience seconds later. That was fantastic. If you can get a chance to find it, it's on YouTube. Watch it. It is so funny. And of course, one of the most poignant ones she did was this year for her Jubilee. She had a really sweet cameo with Paddington Bear. Paddington Bear. And in the sketch or the video, she is sitting having tea with him. And the crowd outside are there for the Jubilee, waving the Union Jack flag, and it's a sea of red, white and blue. And Paddington takes his marmalade sandwich out of his hat and tells her that he always keeps it there for later. Puts it back on. Then the Queen really sweetly reveals that she keeps her marmalade sandwich in her handbag or purse. She keeps it for later. They played that tonight. Actually, Paddington is on television tonight as I speak. And before it started, they showed that really sweet little video. And the Queen is now immortalised with Paddington. And one guy has even had a tattoo of the Queen holding hands with Paddington, walking off into the distance. And she says, well, that's that done then, isn't it? How about a cup of tea? Very poignant. Now, did you know that the Queen is meant to have the most amazing, sharp sense of humour? Apparently very, very witty. When Saudi Arabia's Prince Abdullah visited Her Royal Highness in 1998, it was illegal for women to drive in his homeland. So given Abdullah the royal tour of one of her Scottish estates. He was absolutely shocked to see Elizabeth climb into the car's front seat, start the car up, and start whizzing down the narrow and winding Scottish streets and roads. Prince Abdullah pleaded with her to slow down and concentrate on the road through his interpreter. That was girl power before it even was a thing. Another time that she showed her wicked sense of humour was when she was on a country walk in Balmoral with her bodyguard, and she was stopped by two American tourists who had asked her if she'd ever met the Queen. She gestured to her bodyguard and said, "No, but he has." Isn't that fantastic? I love that kind of sense of humour. Well, I think that's all I've got time for. So tomorrow is Sunday. I made an exception of making a video on a Saturday evening rather than a Sunday, which I normally do. Just because of the way things are at the moment, very busy. And I decided to dedicate this particular video to Her Majesty. And I never met Her Majesty. She visited my region numerous times over the years, but I've never actually met her, or any of the royal family for that matter. But I always knew she was there. It was almost like a heartbeat of the nation. She was like a steady, rhythmic ticking of a clock. But now that clock has fell silent. That pendulum swing that kept our ebb and flow has silenced. And of course we're now in the reign of Charles III. And of course, I hope he does a marvellous job. But he's got very big, big shoes to fill. So I will say good night and farewell to Queen Elizabeth II as we say our final goodbyes and lay her to rest. I will see you all very, very, very soon.